Hello students. In this video I'm going to talk about exercise 0. We don't have lab this week because there were no Monday classes, and all of the other labs that meet from Tuesday to Friday will be having lab virtually to talk about the class and to talk about exercise 0. And so I'm preparing this short video to kind of walk you through exercise 0. If you have any questions or concerns, I do have email. You can email me at any time. I also have office hours on Fridays from 10 until noon. There's a button on my Blackboard site to link to the Collaborate where I will be during that office hours. And so let's move to our Blackboard site and take a look at this exercise 0. So here I am on our Blackboard site. It might look a little different than yours, but I noticed in the last week or so that I've got some emails or some announcements that tell me a little bit about the course. That tells me it's a hybrid course, that we have two groups in this staggered hybrid, Group A and Group B. So I found, or you found, I hope, your group. And then the next announcement told me all sorts of things that I need to do before Bio 120 Lab starts, right? So I need to review the material on the Begin Here button. I need to find out which group I'm in. I need to buy safety goggles at the GVSU bookstore before the first in-person lab. I need a graphing calculator, or at least a scientific calculator. I need to have access to Excel, and the best Excel available is free. You can access it by downloading it from our GVSU IT site. Here's a link to it. And then there's some information on this email that said, whoa, what's going to happen in the first 3 weeks? Look at the next email or look at the next announcement to find out. And then I read my next announcement, which has a lot of information. And it basically tells me that we have something to do in this first week of class, even though we don't meet for lab. So in the first week, in the week of January 18, we have to complete exercise 0, getting ready or science up, like Laker up, science up. In groups A and B, these, by the way, this exercise is an online exercise. We don't even have lab, so it's good that it's online. And groups A and B have to complete the same materials. Then, week of January 25, we have another online exercise. We will actually meet virtually during our lab period. All of us, Group A, Group B, and me, will come to our Collaborate Blackboard site, and I will talk to you briefly about the course if you have any questions. Then I will also preview exercise 1. Notice that we also have information about the next exercise, the week of February 1. The next exercise we'll be doing is also an online exercise. This is intentional, having 3 online exercises at the beginning of the semester because of COVID. And so we're hoping to push our face-to-face meetings back in an effort to, I hope COVID is on the decline by the time we meet in person. Okay. So this first week, then, we have to actually complete some work. We have to read and complete the material for exercise 0. And I noticed that the due dates for materials are this week. Friday, January 22 at 6 p.m. is the first due date, and it's for the pre-lab quiz for exercise 0. The second due date is the same time, Friday, January 22 at 6 p.m. for exercise 0 worksheet. Now, usually, you have 2 assignments a week. You have a pre-lab assignment, a pre-lab quiz, we call it, and a second worksheet assignment. Typically, the pre-lab quiz will be due the Sunday before the lab. So if you notice, for the week of January 25, exercise 1, we have to actually complete the pre-lab quiz on January 24 at midnight, on Sunday, January 24. The second thing you'll always have to do is a worksheet assignment. And they're typically going to be due on Fridays at 6 p.m. after the lab, after the week of lab. All right, so so this is very typical, but our first week, because it's an unusual week, our pre-lab and our worksheet assignment are both due at 6 p.m. on Friday, January 22. So now I have to sort out what's going on in exercise 0 and what it means. So I'm going to scroll up to my exercise button because that's where my information will be. So I'm going to click on the exercise button and I see a bunch of exercises. Actually, I, the instructor, have only kind of posted the complete information for the first 3 weeks. The next information I'll be updating as we go. So don't get way ahead. That's all right. So in exercise, every exercise has a folder. Exercise 0, our first exercise, is called Getting Ready or Science Up. And when I click on that folder, I'm going to see typically 4 or 5 documents on the folder, but almost always these same things. First, a little bit of introduction, just telling you what is in the folder. So I've got a document on getting science-y that I need to read completely before completing the pre-lab quiz or the assignment. A pre-lab quiz and exercise 0 worksheet assignment. Okay, and I can see these things right beneath. This is my document I need to read, my pre-lab quiz. If I click on these links, I will directly access the pre-lab quiz. The pre-lab quiz tells me when it's due and how long it is, and the fact that I have 2 attempts to take it. Every single pre-lab quiz will be the same, 15 questions, 30 minutes to complete, 2 attempts. And then I have the worksheet assignment, and it also tells me when it's due, and it gives me a link to that document as well. So now, what do I need to do? If I were you, the first thing I would do is read the Getting Started Science Up document. So I'm going to click on that, kind of walk you through it a little bit. Every document starts out with some questions that we're going to address and some objectives. This document is basically getting you ready for this particular lab and for displaying data in science and how we go about displaying data. So we're going to show you how to complete a pre-lab quiz in Blackboard and submit a worksheet. This is kind of practice for the rest of the semester. Also, how to make figures and answer short answer questions. Okay? So the first thing you're going to do is read the introduction, read about the history of doing science labs and the structure of our exercises. All right? We'll be working in Blackboard as our learning management system. That's obvious. Tells you a little bit about that. Okay? One of the things that you need to know about working in Blackboard is when you submit a document in Blackboard, you'll need to submit it in PDF format. I can't read things like Pages or HEIC kinds of documents. I just can't. And so if you submit a document that's not PDF, I will post it as a 0 until you resubmit the document in an appropriate format. And then there's some information on how do we display data and what kind of ways do we take our data and show them visually so that they're easier to understand. And how do you make good figures and good tables? So there's information here about how we do that. So you're going to read through the different kinds of graphs, XY graphs, and using histograms, and some different information that we're specifically doing in our course. How do you go about answering questions in a good way? What are the 4 things that you need to make sure that you've done when you're addressing a question? And then we move to, hey, our pre-lab quiz. All right? So go to the Blackboard, go to the exercises and documents section, open the appropriate exercise folder. This week you'll work through exercise 0, worksheet assignment, read the information on the pre-lab quiz. All right? Take the pre-lab quiz, make sure that you've taken it, and then print out the graph paper for the worksheet and get started on the worksheet. And this Usually what happens at the end of each document, exercise 0, exercise 1, whatever exercise you're in, there's a list of things that you're going to be doing, either in lab or at home, and completing these. While you're doing these activities, you'll also be answering your questions on the worksheet itself. And so there's a worksheet that you'll be answering questions on directly, okay? And here's how you do that. Here's an appendix in this document as well that shows you different kinds of visual displays of data. So a line graph or an XY graph, a histogram, that's like a bar graph, a table, how to make a good table, and also how to annotate a picture. So here the researchers had to put some labels on this picture of an electrophoresis gel. Okay, and then there's an appendix that has the rubrics, the grading rubrics for figures, for tables, and for pictures, so that you know how I will be grading your figures and tables and pictures. Now, we're not done yet. We've just done the readings for exercise 0. My next step would be to go back to Blackboard after reading this and take the pre-lab quiz. So I'm ready to take the pre-lab quiz. I'll click on it and it'll get started, and I'll have 30 minutes to do it. Typically, don't break up that time. Plan to spend the 30 minutes at one time, and you should be working by yourself, but you can use the documents that we have, right? You have access to them. So use them, and you have 2 attempts. Do your best on the first attempt and then retake it. Most people should get 7.5 points on these assignments, or at least get 6 to 7.5 points on every single pre-lab quiz. After you've taken the pre-lab quiz, now it's time to do the worksheet assignment. The worksheet assignment link is located in our assignment on Blackboard. So I'm going to click on that worksheet assignment link, and here I am. Exercise 0, worksheet assignment, Science Up, 12 points. This is a Google Docs document, so you'll want to go to the file. You can either download it, but I would probably just make a copy of it. Use that copy to write on, to complete it. And then once you've made a copy and you've completed the worksheet, you can then save this or download this as a PDF and upload your PDF to our assignment site. So what is going to happen for exercise 0? Let's check it out a second. What's on the worksheet? So sometimes I scroll through things just to sort of sort out what's there. So it looks like we're going to have to do something with a line graph, an XY graph with some data that's given to us. There's even a green grid there that we have to complete. Part 2 is annotating a picture, so we're going to have to add some labels to this picture. And part 3, answering a short question, answering a question about some histogram graphs that we're interpreting, it looks like. Okay, now, it looks like we're just practicing graphing and visual display of data here. So I'm going to read my assignment very carefully. There's a lot of information in the paragraphs within this assignment that are going to be really useful for you to do well on the assignment. So I want you to read the background information about the research that was done for part 1, which involves research on using an enzyme called polyphenol oxidase. This enzyme is actually an enzyme that's found in like apples and bananas, and it causes that browning reaction. If you cut an apple and let it sit on the counter, it gets all brown and yucky. This is the enzyme that's involved in catalyzing the reaction that causes the browning. And we measure the rate of the reaction, the rate of this enzyme catalyzed reaction, by using an instrument called a spectrophotometer. The spectrophotometer can measure how much light a sample in a little test tube absorbs. The darker the color of the sample, the more it absorbs. And what's going to happen on a reaction tube is our clear sample is going to become browner and browner over time if the enzyme is working. And so we collect some data, and you're supposed to graph it. When you graph these data, I usually have a paragraph about what you need to graph. This is going to be useful for you when you're making a figure caption. Pay attention. Also notice that I have a tutorial, a link to a tutorial here, a video tutorial that can help you make a good graph, and a link to the grading rubric again, okay? All right, and I see a typo here, so I'm just going to fix it. All right. You're going to need to make a graph using graph paper. I don't want a graph on regular old boring line paper or paper with no lines. You need to get some graphing paper somewhere. And it can be this, you can print this green grid paper out. You can use another type of graphing paper that you already have access to, but you need the graphing paper, and you're going to do this one by hand. You're going to make the graph by hand. You can use the tutorials to help you. Once you've made your graph, you can delete this green grid paper, take a picture of your graph, insert the picture right here into your document, make a caption, and you've answered the question. Okay, figuring out how to make a good caption. To do that, you need to read this document carefully, and I would watch the video tutorial. That should help you out a lot. So if you go to this video tutorial, hand drawing a good graph.
That's a little bit
basically just got
I also wanted to make sure that
a set of data that I make into a graph. That I'm showing you how to make a good graph and what to include in a figure caption. Okay, and there's some information about what to include in a
test
figure
scores for
caption.
college students.
Okay. After you finish this part 1, work on part 2. To annotate a picture, it's a little bit trickier. You have to copy the picture somewhere else, do your annotations, and it tells you how to do this in our document, and then paste it back in. Take a picture of it, put it back into the document. So then you'll be able to delete the unannotated document. And for part 3, you simply have to read the information, use the information, and answer this question, placing your answer right in the box. And then once you're done, you need to submit your completed worksheet to the assignment site on Blackboard. Submit this as a PDF document. So then when I'm all done, I simply have to go click on my worksheet assignment. And it tells me when it's due, it tells me how many points it's worth, it gives me all that good information. And then you have to browse your computer to attach your document file, and then you must hit submit. If you don't hit submit, it won't get submitted, and I'll have to give you a 0. So please submit your document. And so by the end of exercise 0, you should be fairly comfortable with our Blackboard site. You should be able to, understand how to take a pre-lab quiz, understand the basics of our setup. You should also be able to turn in an assignment. And we're going to learn a little bit about how we display data in science. That's pretty important. Displaying data is really, really critical for telling a science story, telling a story about an experiment that you do. The best way you can do that is put up a picture, right? Put up a figure or a table or a picture of what you've done. And that's what we're learning about in exercise 0. Okay. I'm not sure if I have anything else I need to show you here. The supplementary material button might help you as well. I have information about how to do graphing, how to calculate means and standard deviations, how to make t-tests, so those are important buttons as well. But I think exercise 0 is pretty self-explanatory, and the biggest thing you can get out of exercise 0, frankly, is understanding how our Blackboard site works and how this course is organized, and second, understanding how to display data. If you have any questions or concerns, visit me during my office hours on Fridays. You can click on the button on Blackboard to just visit me during that time, or you can email me. And I think that's everything for now. I hope that I've explained this clearly, and I feel bad that we're not able to meet during our first week of classes as all of the other student groups are, Tuesday through Friday groups. but hang tight. We'll meet virtually in the second week of classes. Alrighty, thank you so much. Hope everything gets started well for you.